Today's story is about two young people named Emily and Jake. They met almost by chance, under very unexpected circumstances. How it all happened, how long their relationship lasted, and how it ended, we'll find out step by step in this narrative. So, make yourselves comfortable, because we're about to embark on an exciting journey into a world of feelings and experiences. Emily Brooks, a second-year student at the Faculty of Philology at one of the most prestigious universities on the East Coast, rushed out of her dorm. It was supposed to be the most important day of her life. At least, she was sure of that, as she was telling her friend on the phone about an urgent meeting with a professor that would decide her continued participation in an international student exchange program. She was convinced the night before that she would wake up on time, but her alarm clock didn't go off, so now she was racing along the narrow sidewalks of the university campus. Her friend was saying something emotionally on the other end of the line, but Emily couldn't catch it all, because suddenly, bam, the girl took a sharp turn around the corner of a building and collided with a tall guy who was also in a hurry. The impact was quite noticeable. He dropped a folder full of documents, and Emily let go of her notebook with notes, which were crucial for that very meeting. I'm so sorry," Emily gasped, trying to pick up her things while not dropping her phone. "No, it's my fault. I wasn't looking where I was going," the guy responded, but then abruptly fell silent when he noticed Emily's bewildered look. She was just about to respond angrily, since the precious pages of her notebook were blowing away in the wind, but then she saw that the stranger's documents were also scattered. One of the covers blew to the side, revealing words like divorce procedure, and that detail made her forget her annoyance for a moment. He clearly has his own problems, Emily thought. "I'm sorry, please," she repeated more softly now. "I'm just terribly late and didn't notice you." "It's all right," he mumbled. "I was in a hurry, too." They quickly gathered their things, exchanged brief apologies, and realized that neither of them had time to stand around talking. That same second, a passerby handed Emily a sheet of paper that read resume for exchange program. The guy noticed that as well. "You almost lost some important paper too, right?" he asked, holding his breath for a moment. "Yes, it's for a meeting that's going to decide my future," Emily joked, but genuine anxiety sounded in her voice. "Well then, best of luck," the stranger replied, trying to shuffle his documents back into a pile. "I hope this isn't the last time we see each other." And before she could blink, he was on his way. Emily stared after him, confused, then glanced at her phone, where her friend was still talking, and realized time wasn't waiting. She took off running again toward that wretched meeting, not even learning his name. And he, meanwhile, would continue to remember her troubled face and the words exchange program, which unexpectedly got stuck in his mind. That peculiar accidental encounter set in motion events that would soon lead to something bigger and more incredible. Both participants in this brief clash of characters were about to have a far more interesting acquaintance ahead of them. The professor decided to give Emily a second chance because her project for the exchange program truly stood out for its thorough approach. The girl breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that the chain of accidents hadn't destroyed her plans. Yet the day was so eventful and stressful that by evening she had forgotten about that morning collision. And then, the following week, when Emily came to the student cafe to work on an essay, she noticed that very same guy by chance. He was standing in line for coffee, wearing a backpack on one shoulder, and checking his watch from time to time. She felt a slight wave of excitement and confusion. Should she approach him? Was he in a hurry again, or not? He recognized her as well. Although at first they exchanged embarrassed glances, within a minute they were sitting together at one table. That's how she learned that the stranger's name was Jake Parker, and he had just transferred to the computer science faculty after studying for a year at another college. The documents she had seen then were related to his parents' divorce. Jake had all sorts of family issues and decided to continue his studies in a new city. "So, you had a rough day too?" he asked with a smile. "Oh, you have no idea. But everything worked out," Emily replied. They talked about their families, about the university, and about how hard it sometimes is to balance studying and personal life. Surprisingly, the conversation flowed easily. Jake turned out to be open, though a bit shy, and Emily was sociable and smart, someone who knew how to listen. Soon they agreed to meet again in the student library. Emily was to help Jake find the philological literature he needed. He was taking general English courses and wasn't very good at them. And Jake promised to sort out Emily's new laptop that had started acting up. And so, their friendship began, initially on the basis of mutual benefit, yet they quickly realized that they simply enjoyed each other's company and felt at ease together. They met sometimes in the library, sometimes in the campus cafe, or at the park near the university. Jake delved into computer algorithms, talked about new programming trends, and Emily sometimes tried to understand them, joking that one day she, too, would learn to code. In turn, Jake listened with fascination as Emily discussed foreign literature for her seminars, admiring her ability to quickly grasp foreign languages. Several weeks passed until one day Emily realized she couldn't wait to see Jake's next message. And Jake, for his part, increasingly caught himself thinking he couldn't concentrate on seminars because her smile kept popping up in his mind. One fall evening, when leaves were covering the main campus avenue in vibrant reds and yellows, Jake decided to invite Emily to a Halloween party organized by students. He knew she adored all things themed and unusual, so he hoped this would help them get to know each other even better in a relaxed setting. When that night arrived, both of them showed up in funny costumes, and, laughing, they took their first photo together, which would later become one of their favorite pictures in the album. The music, the lights, the pumpkins, and the overall festive craziness brought people together. But these two seemed to have their own world, chatting about everything and sometimes forgetting there were other guests around. Only closer to midnight did Emily and Jake realize they had been strolling around the grounds for over an hour, holding hands and laughing at jokes only they understood. "I think I'm in love," he confessed in a quiet voice when they stopped under a string of lanterns. "How strange, because I feel the same," Emily smiled. Their first kiss happened without any pomp, but it was so warm and sincere that they would remember it forever. After that evening, they officially started dating. The university quickly caught on to the news. One of their friends had seen the party photo and spread the word. Emily and Jake didn't deny it. They felt comfortable with everyone knowing, and they didn't want to hide what they felt. Jake began spending more time in Emily's dorm, where they did homework together. He helped her with the digital components of presentations, and she advised him on how best to phrase text for his projects. They attended university football matches, met up with friends in the pub in the evenings, or just walked through the park admiring the sunset. Sometimes Jake cooked her simple, yet tasty dishes, recipes he'd learned from his mom, and Emily baked chocolate chip cookies that Jake had loved since childhood. These small things brought them closer, forming part of a cozy home-like atmosphere, even within the walls of their dorms and campus. It seemed their relationship had a special aura of warmth. They found it interesting both to be together and to pursue their own activities, each respecting the other's space. But they understood that sooner or later they would have to step beyond the soap bubble of university life. For now, though, they tried to simply enjoy the moment. Their first serious challenge came at the end of the semester, when both had final exams at the same time. Emily struggled with huge amounts of literature and research to write a term paper on the differences between two Romance languages. Jake was working on a database modeling project that determined his scholarship status. Both were so swamped that they had no time left for dates. One evening, Emily returned from the library with a fever and a terrible cough. When Jake found out, he rushed over with a medical kit. Those family medical genes of his came in handy, made her drink hot tea, and put her to bed. She felt guilty for distracting him from his important project, but Jake insisted she needed care and that no database could be more important than her health. The next day, when her fever subsided, they found a compromise. Emily stayed in bed while Jake sat beside her with his laptop, working on his project. They took turns telling jokes, offering advice, or just sitting in silence, feeling each other's support. Perhaps it was this very silence that spoke the loudest. It showed trust and a genuine willingness to help when needed. In the end, they both did well on their exams. And that silly sick day episode only strengthened their bond. Winter break was approaching, and Emily and Jake were due to head back to their hometowns. Emily lived on the coast in a sunny town where even in winter it rarely got cold, while Jake was from a Midwestern town where snow could stay on the ground for months. While most students looked forward to a rest, they both felt sad, realizing they'd be seeing each other only online for at least 3 weeks. But miracles do happen. Emily's parents, finding out she had a boyfriend, decided to see a real winter and visit Jake's family, and at the same time meet them. Jake initially panicked because his parents were in the midst of a divorce and the atmosphere was tense. At the same time, he wanted to introduce Emily to his mother, who was the closest person in his life. In the end, it all went better than he expected. Emily's parents turned out to be very warm people who quickly befriended Jake's mother. Jake's father, though no longer living with them, called to greet the visitors. It was an unusual situation for both families, yet somehow they found plenty of topics to discuss, from parenting to college memories. Meanwhile, Jake and Emily went sledding, built a snowman, and enjoyed magical winter holidays that were completely different from their university life, but so homey and warm that they had no more doubts. Their relationship was becoming serious. Returning from break, they threw themselves back into their studies with renewed energy. It was the second semester for each of them, though on different year levels. Emily planned to take additional courses in Spanish and Italian to broaden her linguistic skill set, while Jake enrolled in extracurricular seminars on cybersecurity and robotics. Sometimes they ran into each other in the cafeteria, exchanging quick jokes or stories about disastrous lectures, and in the evenings they met up in the library or the dorm for a cozy chat. On free days, they loved exploring hidden corners of the campus. They stumbled upon an art gallery where students displayed their sculptures, or snuck onto the roof of the astronomy building to gaze at the stars. Jake sometimes wondered at how multifaceted Emily was. She could passionately debate literary theory, then laugh at his jokes about computer bugs. Emily, in turn, was inspired by Jake's love of technology. She saw how his eyes lit up when he explained the intricacies of a new program or described how he got rid of a virus on his roommate's laptop. Their relationship grew deeper, and they realized they could no longer imagine their college life without one another. By the end of the academic year, Emily and Jake began thinking about summer internships. Emily dreamed of interning at a prestigious publishing house in New York to gain experience in editorial work. Jake was eyeing companies in Silicon Valley that were doing cutting-edge work in AI. They were both excited and anxious at the same time. New York and California are on opposite sides of the country. What would happen to their relationship if the offers were too good to refuse? A 3-month separation could be a tough challenge. But ultimately, they decided that each should seize the opportunity to grow in their own field, and they would support each other. "If we're meant to be together," Emily said, "no distance can stand in our way." Jake agreed. "Just wait and see. We'll find a way." So they both applied for the internships and eagerly awaited the results. And everything turned out as expected. Emily was accepted into a major publishing house's language center in New York, while Jake got into a company in Silicon Valley. They parted ways for the summer, heading in opposite directions, but agreed to stay in touch every day with at least a few messages, and to have a long video call every Sunday. In New York, Emily quickly got immersed in work, reading manuscripts, writing editorial notes, and penning short annotations. She got to know the gigantic city quickly. It captivated her. Yet in the evenings, Emily often felt lonely without Jake and told him on the phone how much she missed him. Meanwhile, Jake found himself in a whirlwind of startups in California. He studied cutting-edge technologies, worked on an image recognition project, and dreamed of making a strong impression. His office colleagues were people from all over the world, and he finally felt he was in the real high-tech industry. But when he returned to his rented room at night, he realized how much he missed Emily and those cozy meetups that had brightened his days. Despite the distance, they kept at it, sharing news, photos, jokes, encouraging each other when things went wrong. Thus, those 3 months of separation flew by, seeming both painfully long and unbelievably short. After finishing their internships, Emily and Jake agreed to spend a few days in Chicago, a sort of golden midpoint for both of them. And so, at the airport, when they saw each other, they ran forward, embraced like kids, and burst out laughing with joy. They rented a small hotel room downtown, strolled along the shores of Lake Michigan, visited museums, ate the famous Chicago deep dish pizza, and could hardly stop talking to make up for lost time. They felt it was the best gift fate could give them, simply being together. When they returned to campus, they realized their bond was even stronger. They had gotten through distance, school, and work challenges. Jake was now a sophomore, Emily a junior, and both had plenty more academic hurdles ahead. But they knew that together, they could handle anything. Time flew by. Emily prepared for more advanced classes, and Jake tried to launch a student startup with a programmer friend. Despite their heavy workloads, they always found time for dates, phone calls, and romantic dinners at the campus cafe. One evening, while sitting in Jake's room, they began talking about the future. Emily admitted that after graduation, she wanted to work in New York, but was afraid of losing Jake if he decided to settle near Silicon Valley. Jake replied that the final decision would be theirs to make together. "If I can find a good job there, I'll move to the ends of the earth if it means we can be together." Those conversations turned into another thread binding them closer. They saw a shared future ahead, with some open questions, yet also with great hope and mutual trust. A year had passed since their first kiss under the Halloween lanterns. Jake decided to prepare a surprise for Emily. Remembering how she loved books and poetry, he arranged with the university librarian for a small, romantic setup in the library in the evening. When Emily arrived, thinking she was there to help Jake with a term paper, she found rose petals scattered between the bookshelves and lit candles. In the cozy light, she saw him, nervous but happy, holding a bouquet and a small velvet box. "I thank fate for having you bump into me around that corner," he said, kneeling. "Now I can't imagine life without your smile, your jokes, and your amazing plans for the future. Will you marry me?" Emily froze, her mouth open in surprise, then, holding back tears of happiness, said yes. She no longer heard any sounds except for her own pounding heart and the wonder shining in Jake's eyes. They were now engaged. Their classmates and friends were thrilled. Some joked, "They're still students, why the rush?" But Emily and Jake felt confident in their choice. They decided not to hurry with the wedding ceremony until after graduation. Yet the engagement became a symbol of their unity in the face of future challenges. They attended university career fairs together, sent out resumes to various companies. Emily got a job offer from a major media agency, while Jake received an offer from a team working on artificial intelligence that needed someone with language technology expertise. It turned out that such a position was also available in New York. It was perfect for both of them. They could stay together, each pursuing their own professional path. By graduation, Emily and Jake already had a solid plan. After receiving their diplomas, they would move to New York, rent a small apartment, and start building their careers. They were a bit scared, big city, stiff competition, hectic pace, but also extremely excited. Besides, they'd have the person they loved most by their side, which would help them get through anything. The graduation ceremony was emotional. Emily walked in her gown with her classmates, Jake with his fellow techies. Yet as soon as they ended up on the same stage, they met each other's eyes by chance and laughed, remembering how it all began, an awkward collision and scattered documents. Who would have thought that day would become a turning point in their lives? A year after moving to New York, once they'd settled in and found some footing, Emily and Jake held a small wedding in a cozy garden just outside the city. Only their parents and close friends were invited. There were plenty of flowers, light music, homemade desserts, and heartfelt tears of joy. Emily wrote her own vows, recalling that first morning she was in a crazy rush and nearly missed her chance at a future career, and at meeting him, too. Jake remembered all the little things that had brought them together and thanked fate for giving him such a partner. After exchanging rings, their parents formed an impromptu guard of honor, and friends showered the newlyweds with rose petals and confetti labeled love, congrats, and forever. Now they lived in a small rented apartment in Brooklyn. Emily worked at a media agency, writing articles and hoping to publish her own book one day. Jake immersed himself in AI by day and came home in the evening with new ideas on how to automate household appliances. On weekends, they explored city museums, galleries, and parks, or if they admitted they were exhausted, simply stayed home watching movies and experimenting with new recipes in the kitchen. Life in a big city, of course, wasn't perfect. They sometimes quarreled over trivial household matters, occasionally struggled financially, or felt stressed at work. But they had developed an important habit: to sit down and talk about whatever was hurting or bothering them, never putting it off. That saved them from hidden resentments and misunderstandings. Gradually, they got used to the city's frenetic pace, finding pockets of calm here and there. And whenever possible, Jake and Emily took short trips or visited their families for the weekend. That original collision that started it all was now a sweet memory rather than a trauma. A few more years passed. During this time, Emily climbed the career ladder, editing serious materials and publishing her own essays. Jake led a small group of engineers working on AI-based embedded systems for medical needs. And just when it seemed their life had settled into a routine, they got news of an upcoming addition to the family. They were a bit scared. Were they ready to become parents? But at the same time, they felt joy, a new chapter in their story. Emily took maternity leave, but continued doing some freelance writing, while Jake arranged with his management to work partly from home to help his wife. When their daughter, little Sophia, was born, their world turned upside down again. Sleepless nights, a great responsibility, yet also boundless love that now had a brand new center of gravity. In moments of exhaustion, Emily sometimes thought, "Wow, I was once in such a rush not to be late for that meeting, and I ran into, well, this wonderful dad of our child," and her heart filled with warmth. And so, step by step, they created their own love story, one that began with an unexpected collision on a university corner. And that was only the beginning. What followed were countless events, from Halloween parties and first kisses to grown-up decisions and strong family embraces. What main things did they carry through all the challenges? Mutual support and willingness to communicate. Respect for each other's dreams and plans. The ability to go through failures and celebrate successes together. Life doesn't always go so smoothly. There can be moments of discouragement or confusion. But when you have someone ready to reach out and say, "We'll get through this," it all becomes more manageable. Emily and Jake felt that and built their future on that foundation. And in the end, this story doesn't end in tragedy or separation. On the contrary, it remains open for new achievements, discoveries, and adventures awaiting them. May their example remind all of us that sometimes one accidental coincidence can turn into a lifelong love.